You can be big-headed and say, yeah, we're going to last 10 years. But as soon as you've said that, you think, you know, we're lucky if we last 3 months, you know.
Good evening, viewers.
By the title of this video, you can clearly tell that we are ranking all 13 Beatles albums. Let's start. Quick reminder before the video starts, though, these are my opinions. Please do not get mad at me. I'm not an expert. This is all for my love of the Beatles. I'm doing this just for fun and out of fun. Of course, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to have everyone's opinions. Everyone's going to agree with me, but I'm doing it for fun, and I hope y'all really do enjoy it, because who doesn't love the Beatles? You must be stupid if you don't love the Beatles. Also, want to say before the video starts, I'm not the one that asked for this, but I did put a lot of time into this video. And again, y'all watching the video right now, if you are watching it, greatly appreciate it. But you don't mind going down there, hitting that like button, commenting, and subscribing. Let me know what you think about the video. Let me know what you think I did, how you think my rankings are. You know, talking to me, I'll come there and talk to you. This is a really fun video to make, and I don't mind making another one. So let me know. And of course, this is enough of me talking. Let's get into it. First album now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
She was just 17. We have our first Beatles album, Please Please Me, being released on March 22nd, 1963. Now, this one's a really hard one to rank. I don't think any Beatles song ever is bad. Like I said, I'm not going to try to be biased about it, but my top 3 songs in this whole album is Baby It's You, Love Me Do, and Twist and Shout. I do understand that Baby It's You is a cover song, but just the way they did it is music to my ears. And my least favorite song, I'm gonna pick the least favorite song on all of these, even though it's hard. It's really hard to pick a least favorite song for a Beatles album. I will say A Taste of Honey, or Taste of Honey, is my least favorite song. With the Beatles being their first album and everything, I'm gonna give this a B. I don't think it's very bad. I don't think it's super good, and I don't think it's special. But I don't think it's trash. I don't think it's garbage. I think it stands at okay. I enjoyed the album very much, but of course having a cover song and just beginning the start of everything. Not everything was there, but it was very great. So I'm gonna give Please Please Me, our first album, a B.
Whenever I want you around, yeah.
For our second album, we have With the Beatles. With the Beatles is their second album, of course, as you know. It came out November 22nd, 1963. Same year, a few months later. Not a few months, but you know what I mean. You know, Beatles trying to solidify themselves as a welcoming band, saying that we're trying to get out there. You know, still putting themselves further on the map and becoming very sensational, or what's the word? Global, I should say. Sensational. But they open up the album with It Won't Be Long. It won't be long, yeah. So again, another banger that they open up with. Beatles have a great opens for albums. Then, you know, it kind of flows a bit. You know, you go up, you go down, you go middle. I wouldn't say this is a horrible album, but I wouldn't say it's great. I also had it another rank, Super S, because one of these albums are going to be a Super S, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that when we get there. But my top 3 songs are It Won't Be Long, Little Child, and Till There Was You. My least favorite song on here is probably Not a Second Time. Not bad at all. I'll rank this a B. I could have gave it a C, but again, it's hard to rank Beatles albums. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to be biased, but it's not a bad album. It really is good. And other people will probably have it high or whatever, but coming from that time and all, it's great. So my final ranking, a B. I just love the end of that song. I think it's a perfect song. I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. And again, the Beatles open up with yet not another miss from an open song in an album. It's just something you're gonna have to get used to, because they just don't miss with open songs.
Motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
For this one, my rankings for my top 3 songs is I Should Have Known Better, harmonica on that, John. Oh my god. If I Fell and Can't Buy Me Love. My least favorite song is probably You Can't Do That. And if I'm gonna rank this one, it's an A. It's not an S. It's not a super S, of course. It's an A. It's right there, and it's showing you that the Beatles are here to stay. It's a great cover album. It's around what they wanted to show, what they had. They just have a little throw songs in there left and right. It's hard to make a perfect album. It's not easy to make a perfect album, but album came out July 10th, 1964. Shows themselves that they are ready. They want to be here. But this album, in my eyes, gets an A. Ooh, I need your love, babe. Guess you know it's true. Perfect song. I could sing that whole. I would sing that whole song right now, word by word. But you don't want to listen to me sing, of course. But our fourth album in less than 2 years is Beatles For Sale, released in December 4th, 1964, I believe. Beatles For Sale had. I don't think it has what the other albums had, which is more songs that are eye popping and grabbing. None of the songs on there are bad. If you throw on this album, I will listen to it and I will not skip it. I don't think a Beatles album has one skip on it. It may have like a iffy song, but not horrible, not at all. These other albums have songs that I can go back to constantly, and I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling this song, I'm feeling this song, I'm feeling this song. Not that I'm not saying I don't feel any songs from this album, but most of the time it's gonna be any album right here than this one. My top 3 songs on this album are No Reply, 8 Days a Week, and What Are You Doing? 8 Days a Week is one of my favorite songs. My least favorite song on this album is Honey Don't. I don't dislike this album, but I don't want to be biased and give it a B, so I am going to give it a C. And if you were to put this album to like any uprising album or band, if you were to give this album to another band or whatever, it'll be their best album. And this is highly considered a okay standard Beatles album. I think they were rushed making this song. I don't think they should have. I think they were just a little rushed and they didn't take their time with it. But other than that, it's not bad at all. I did find something funny that someone wrote. I'm gonna put it up on the screen. I'm not gonna read it, but about some guy talking about like how the Beatles were like kidnapped by the government, and that's why they were so quick and they were victims of a human trafficking scandal, this and that. And he said that's why they released an album called Beatles For Sale. Someone find out their secrets. And then he goes on and says, I think I cracked the code, and if I get found out, I'll be shot on sight. So I'm currently on the run. So if you don't see another video from me, then that means I am probably going to get shot and killed, because now I'm releasing that. But hopefully that's not the case. Or if this video never goes out, then yeah, so because hey, if this video is out, that means I'm okay. So if you're watching this video right now, I'm doing fine. But after that, I'll rank this album AC. Next, we move on to Help. I don't want to continue to sing the songs, but they're just so good. And once again, the Beatles don't miss when an opening song with Help. Of course, being the song Help, which people will later find out is John actually crying for help. He said it was like his Fat Elvis period, and that like he just was like, when you do songs like this and all, you can't make everyone happy. And just being as big as he was, it makes sense. But my top 3 songs on this album have to be Ticket to Ride, I Just Seen a Face, and of course Yesterday. My least favorite song is Act Naturally, which is by my favorite Beatle, Ringo, because I was a drummer. But as I get older, John probably became my favorite. But it's not a bad, of course, not a bad album, not a bad song, and it's everything about it is perfect. Well, not perfect, but you know what I mean. It's right there. They just don't make a bad. They don't make a bad album. It's perfect. It really is. But to rank it, it just makes it so much harder. So, of course, with that being, I'm probably gonna give Help an A. I don't think it's S material, but I don't think it's super S material. I can even put it at S. But I just don't think it's right there at S. It's really close. You could put it either or, really. One thing I was also reading about or knowing that was really cool about the album was, of course, with Help being so different, it was just the way they redid a lot more things and added a lot more things with more use of a keyboard, or they used more of John was using more of his acoustic guitar. I also like the album cover. The album cover is so funny to me because I believe that if you look, it's called Help, and there's a guy, his name is Robert Freeman, I believe. Yeah, it was Robert Freeman who was trying to like he had like the idea of putting them in a flag semaphore. I believe, I don't know if I'm saying it right, to try to spell out help, but they spell out a few different words, and it's very weird. Like it doesn't spell out help at all, and it's just funny. But of course, it doesn't matter. I don't think people really look deep into that. It also was I didn't know about this, but it was they were nominated for Album of the Year at the 1966 Grammys. Okay, so it was nominated for Album of the Year, and the album also was released on August 6, 1965. So they take their time, they come forward, they release a good album. Like I said, it was a, they were back and forth with some stuff. John was going through a phase. Other than that, they really did come out and release a great album. So my final decision will be an A. All right, now we move on to Rubber Souls, my personal favorite album by the Beatles. I think this album is perfect. You already know where it's going. I think it's perfect. I don't think there's one song bad on the album. I don't think it's horrible. I know all the words to each song. Released on December 6, 1965. This was just perfection. They come back to back with A albums and they just give you a super S. A super S.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
They couldn't do nothing wrong. They broke records at Shea Stadium for it with the most attendance ever and generation revenue. It was Album of the Year. Right after Help comes Album of the Year again. So I'm on Rolling Stones right now, and it says right here, the album where the Beatles became the Beatles. It was the most out there music they ever made, but also their warmest, friendliest, and most emotionally direct. As soon as it dropped in December 1965, Rubber Soul cut the story of pop music in half. For all living in the future, this album invented. Now as then, every pop artist will wants to make a Rubber Soul of their own. Finally took over the studio. John Lennon told Rolling Stones, blah, blah, blah. In the early days, we had to take what we were given. We didn't know how we could get more bass. We were learning the technique of Rubber Souls. We were more precise about making the album. That's all. And we took over the cover and everything. It was also where Mop Tops grew up. It was also where they spoke of loads of weeds. So although these songs with all humor and deep emotions go in hand, like George Harrison in a Cowboys hat, no rock star has ever looked less stupid in a cowboy hat than George on the back cover. It's just perfect. I think the album cover is perfect. I think the whole album is perfect. You see the records, you see what it did. It's a perfect album. My top 4 songs, I'll put 4 songs because I can, is Nowhere Mad, I'm Looking Through You / In My Life, and If I Needed Someone. Then my least favorite song, if I have to pick a least favorite song, will probably be Drive My Car. Yes, I know it's their opening song, and I say they don't miss. They don't miss. But I think it was the last song that was added to my playlist when I was listening to this album. Like, it's just perfect. It's just perfect. So with that, this album gets a super S without doubt.
Look at all the lovely people.
Now we move on to Revolver. Again, another album that's just perfect. It really is. It's back to back doing this, what the Beatles are doing. Like we said, that we have entered now what is known as the LSD phase of the Beatles. Pretty sure a dentist, they were at a party, slipped a LSD into their drinks, and well, the rest is history. So, even though he drugged them, he, I guess, helped them. I mean, I think the Beatles would have been fine on their own, but like doing that was crazy. This album has no skips whatsoever. It is a super S. When I went into this album, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think this was S tier at all. And after listening to it, I made it super S tier again. I listen to these albums a lot, but just going back and listening to it, and it's it's just magical. Like I was very wrong about this album. It's perfect in every way. It just to do what they did and to do what they're doing now, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I mean, the Beatles just I don't even know how to explain it. Just what they were doing at this time and age. If YouTube was around, the Beatles will have the most views ever probably on YouTube history. I mean, no, we're talking about Beatlemania now. Came out August 5th, 1966. It took a pretty big leap. They took their time with this one, almost a year before they dropped this one from Rubber Souls being December 5th. This comes to August of next year. And they delivered. They delivered. You cannot say. My top 3 songs on this album are Yellow Submarine, And Your Bird Can Sing, which is one of my favorite Beatles songs, and For No One. My least favorite song is Tomorrow Never Knows, and the song isn't even garbage. I had to pick one. I'll say that just because it was something you haven't heard before. It with the distant background and it's actually beautiful. Like it's beautiful. Like if you, I can't even like it. I don't even. It's really hard for me to even explain why why I picked it as my least favorite song because of how beautiful it is. I mean, you can listen to that song with your eyes closed and you probably cry. I mean, it's that perfect of an album. It's just that perfect. So that's a super S tier, without doubt. That's my final ranking. Next, moving on to our list, we have Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Said to be released around May 26, 1967 or June 1st, 1967, which whenever you want to believe. It said that it was rushed, but it says everything came out June 1st. You know, this and that, it don't matter. But Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, yet again, it's one of the best albums ever made. It really is. I mean, this is 3 back-to-back super fucking S's. And I can't even, like, I'm not even trying to be biased here, but this album is perfect from start to finish. Yet, not another miss from their first song. It ties into everything. Everything they do is great. I don't think there's one. Well, the only song that I would say that isn't so well on this song is Fixing a Hole, or this album, I should say. I just don't think it belonged. I mean, it's not bad, but it doesn't belong in this album. You take that song out, you put another song in there, something like better. You give that song to another artist, it's probably their best song. That's just how good. It doesn't know how good you are to be able to do that. It's definitely a super S. I'm not taking it back at all. It's not an S. It's not. It's a super S. My top 3 songs on this album will have to be With a Little Help from My Friends. I love that song, even though people be like, "Oh, that's a weird one. That's a weird one." I think giving it to Ringo was the perfect choice after Paul sings the intro. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It's a perfect song. It's an S. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. People like to say, CL, Sky, S, Diamonds, D, LSD. It's not that. If you really want to know what I heard is that, or like in the pictures, there was diamonds she was drawing everywhere, and he just made Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Again, perfect. You have, and then When I'm 64 and A Day in the Life. I think those are the perfect songs on this album. I also think Fixing a Hole is the worst song on here. And, I'm not going to stand by it. I just don't think it belongs. Other than that, it's a perfect album. It still is a perfect album. A Day in the Life ends it great. One of the best songs. What's that one song I was just playing? Within Without You. It's a perfect song. Perfect song. And again, what they were doing, man. It's just, could you imagine being in the studio at that time making that song going like,
what have I done?
Dude, what did we just create? Like, what did we just create? They were. It just blows my mind how perfect they were. It's a super S. That's my final decision. I can't take it back. Now we move on to The Magical Mystery Tour. Released in November 27th, 1967, this kind of follows the same loop behind Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, except they wanted to put it more into a real-world scenario. Of course, behind Sgt. Pepper's with all their crazy people and their albums and all that album cover and a great album cover, we then move on to Magical Mystery Tour, which was It was a little weird. We can all say that. But once again, Beatles open up the album with Magical Mystery Tours. Yet again, they don't miss. It's just it's a clear occurrence at this point. They don't miss. My favorite songs on this album have to be "I Am the Walrus," "Strawberry Fields Forever," "Penny Lane," and "All You Need Is Love." My least favorite song is probably "Blue Jay Way." I just do not like that song. It's actually like, once I can actually say that about a Beatles song, is that I just could not wrap around it. It just didn't flow with me. But I can't say that the album is horrible. I'm not going to say it's great. I actually did a school project on the Beatles when I was in school, and I got an A, I'm pretty sure, on the project. But like, it was like we were reading about Alice in Wonderland, and I couldn't. They just wanted to like make up show like a bizarre project, and I was like, the Beatles had the most bizarre project. A Magical Mystery Tour, of course, with the walrus and all that. And like, I mean, look at this album cover. Look how bizarre everything looks. Like, this would torment the kid. If I have to rank this album, I'm gonna rank it an A. I don't think it's an S. It's definitely not a super S, but I don't think it's anywhere near B, because it's not bad what they were trying to make with their songs and everything. Again, they're on LSD and they're making these songs that are so good. Like, "I Am the Walrus" is one of the funniest songs that in the world that John has ever wrote. Probably his funniest song he's ever wrote, because they were like studying his songs in a school, and he found out that like they're studying his songs in school for the meaning behind his songs. So he made "I Am the Walrus," which means absolutely nothing. He made up the most bizarre shit he could think of and put it into a Beatles song, while on LSD, of course. So that just shows you what kind of person John was. A very funny person. "Strawberry Fields" and "Penny Lane," of course, is all about them in their little area. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Paul writes about that, about his area around where he used to live. Strawberry Fields being a strawberry fields, and Penny Lane being a little area around him. And then, of course, "All You Need Is Love," which is one of the greatest songs broadcast ever. Well, not the greatest. It is the very first song broadcast ever. It was the event in which arrived as the first live international satellite television production. Would air globally on June 25th, 1967 as a concert that would attract between 400 and 600 million viewers across the world. Oh my God. And it is the very first. It's "All You Need Is Love," and it just showed them now where they were as a group, and they were just now solidifying their greatness. It's a great album. It's an okay album, I should say, but it's not bad. So my final ranking has to be an A. We have the White Album, which, oh man, I mean, where do we start with the White Album? The White Album is redeemed to be one of the greatest albums ever. Released on November 22nd, 1968. The White Album has a lot of things that we can dive into, making it one of the best. One, the White Album was the first album released by their own label, following the death of their manager, Brian Epstein. Their first ever double platinum album, 24 platinum certified status, making it the 4th platinum certified album of all time. So they say that the start or the make of the White Album was when they were in Rishikesh, India. I probably butchered that word, please forgive me. It's the Beatles sought enlightenment in the meditation class of famed spiritualists, following the practice behind Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Again, forgive me. Like I said, this album had a lot. It brought a lot. Also, the album is being released on November 22nd, 1968. It almost took them a whole year. They don't usually take that long to make albums and all that. So during this time, people were like, "Oh, the Beatles are off. They're done." The Magical Mystery Tour wasn't all that. It's just the Beatles are done for. They can't make another great album. Then they drop one of the best albums of all time with coming the White Album. And things in life that you just don't say, and that's one of them. The Beatles just came out and said, "Yeah, don't worry, we'll show you." And they came and they dropped the White Album. It's a super S. It's a super S. You can't take away from it. I mean, like I said, we're talking one of the greats. Another thing between these 2 points, the omnivorous out the records, all the records take bites out of folk, blues, rock and roll, ska, country, doo-wop, psychedelia, tin pally alley, musque, concrete, and easy lightning, while offering provisions of prog, rock, and heavy metal. This album really paved the way for a lot of fucking albums. Excuse my language, but it's it's just what it did. It really was special. And you gotta give it a super S. You can even rank this album higher. There was one, but of course, this is one of the albums in a league of its own. So super S by sure. I actually forgot to put my favorite songs for the White Album, so I'm gonna say it real quick. Dear Prudence, Oobla Dee Oobla Da, The Continued Story of Bungalow Bill, following with My Guitar Gently Weeps, Martha, My Dear, Don't Pass Me By, and Julia. My least favorite song is Your Blues. Sorry, yo, I forgot to. Rocky Raccoon and Mother Nature's Son. Now we move on to the Yellow Submarine. The album came out on January 13th, 1969, and the movie came out November 13th, 1986. To be honest with you, I wouldn't consider this an album. It's really not an album. It's more of a soundtrack. I mean, they have 5 songs on there before they get into the instruments, and 2 of the 5 songs have already released on previous albums. It goes Yellow Submarine, which is the name of the album, so of course they added that, which came out on Revolver. They have Only a Northern Song, S song. All Together Now, S song. Hey Bulldog, S song. And It's All Too Much, S song. That's an S tier right there. Of course, the last one being All You Need Is Love. Before you get into like the soundtrack, the type of background music you hear, and like videos and all that, but just put into a movie. Now, if I had to rank this album, I wouldn't even call it an album. I really wouldn't. I don't think this is an album. It's not really that much. It's just something they threw together for the movie. And even though it's nice, and I think it's very, like, it's fun to listen to and all that, it has pretty good songs on there, like I said. I can't really rank this. If I am to rank this, I can put it like in a brag of its own, calling it not an album. But the songs on the album are S tier. So I'm putting an S tier with a question mark. And the only reason I'm putting an S tier with a question mark because I'm not considering it an album. So I'm not really considering it S tier. I'm just considering the songs on there S tier, which they are. But that's pretty much all I can really say about the Yellow Submarine. I mean, of course, let's see. I mean, the movie itself, it's like they're on LSD. I mean, look at this. You're telling me this doesn't look like some shit you see when you're off drugs? Again, it's a weird. This is their 10th album, but I won't even call it an album. But if I'm ranking it, it's an S, but it's not an album. But their songs are S's. Make sense? Cool. Now we move on to Abbey Road, released September 1969 and went straight to #1 for a very long time. I'm going to say my favorite songs real quick before I forget about them. Come Together, which is my favorite Beatles song, is the #1 song on the album. I know, they don't miss. Something, which is considered by Frank Sinatra one of the greatest love songs of all time. Maxwell's Silver's Hammer, Octopus's Garden, Here Comes the Sun, You Never Give Me Your Money. My least favorite song is She's So Heavy. It's just too long. I never got into it. It's like a 7-minute song, and I'm over here like, mod on. Not a bad. I mean, I won't call it horrible. Like I said, I can maybe listen to it, but I won't be like, yeah, put it on. I'm just probably not one of my favorites. But this album, I mean, where do we start? It's a famous album cover by far. You don't even listen to the Beatles, you know this album cover. It's really them in the streets. You have seen it everywhere. You've seen it in movies. You've seen people reenact it. You've seen in shows. You have seen people talk about it. It's one of the famous album covers of all time, if not the famous album cover of all time. I won't put it that far, but it's definitely up there. By saying this is also, many people say, the best Beatles album of all time. Again, we have this is the best, this is the best, this is the best, this is the best. You got so many albums that are considered the best Beatles album of all time. My favorite album, I don't even think can compete a lot with these albums. It just shows you what the Beatles were as a band. I mean, a lot of the Beatles albums, it's just like I said, yeah. It's ranked as the number 5 best albums of all time to the Rolling Stones magazines. It's also considered the Beatles' last album together since they were all together. Well, I'll get into that with Let It Be, but kind of the one where they recorded all Fab Four together. They were all like, it was getting to a point, you know, where they were getting close, and they thought it was going to be their last album together. Even George Martin had to be convinced, which is their producer, produced this album. Here Comes the Sun, which is on this album, has amassed over 53.7 million plays, and it's the most streamed song of the Beatles of all time. It's their most streamed song, and second place is not even close to this song. It has over like 160,000 downloads or something. It's very far. Her Majesty, which is the last album on this track, was actually a hidden track. Supposed to be on the album, was placed there later. I could go on for days really talking about this album, and I don't want to keep y'all waiting. I mean, it's like I said, it's one of the best ever. It really is. A lot of people like this album. I would say if you want to listen to a good album, I will always say start from the beginning and work your way up, because it's like it progresses their greatness. But I guarantee you have heard a song on this album or the White Album. These two albums are their famous song. Again, if you don't know the Beatles, you have heard Here Comes the Sun or Come Together. There's just no way you want it. But it's definitely a super S, and there's no taking that back. It's definitely a super S. I mean, I might even change this up a bit at the end just to redo everything, you know, not to make it so biased, because I have 4 super S's. 5 super S's. And like I'm not even trying to be like nice or anything, but like this is stuff that warms my ear. I mean, it's also my favorite band and my favorite piece of music ever. But I mean, like my ears really are like saved. Like if I was deaf and I was never able to hear this, I would be in tears, knowing that like I missed out on one of the greatest band of all time. But Super S is my final ranking. And now on to our final album, Let It Be. Released May 8th, 1970, a month after the group's public breakup, the album topped charts, but wasn't considered a Beatles album, in quotations. I say that because it would take the hearts of many, but for years to come. It was, it wasn't like these albums. It wasn't like Abbey Road. It kind of was, you can tell that something was going on, especially if they're breaking up. And people knew it wasn't like, it was going to be like a little throw, they just rushed it. But like, don't get me wrong, it's still a great album. The song itself had the highest debut on the Billboard Hot 100, beginning its chart run at number 6 and finally reaching the top. That's the song, Let It Be. My fave songs are followed with Two of Us, which is the first song. I know. Across the Universe, one of my favorite songs. Let It Be, which Paul wrote after seeing his mother in a dream. I Got a Feeling, and The Long and Winding Road. It was the last Beatles' #1 hit song. Maggie May's my least favorite song, just because it's short. That's really all. It's I mean, you could say, Dig It's pretty short too, but the ending's funny, and it's 10 seconds quicker. Maggie May's 40, Dig It's 50, but the ending's funny. George actually quit the band for a little, during the time of the Let It Be album, and really none of them were really like together as they were in Abbey Road. A lot of them were spaced out, doing this, doing that. It wasn't like they all didn't come together. One of the songs that was actually supposed to be on Let It Be didn't make it, which George wrote, so he put it on his album. Paul released one of his albums before Let It Be even came out. Again, like they weren't really together like that anymore. It's it's like one of those like breakups that you just they needed time, but they weren't getting it, so it sucked. Before the Let It Be album dropped, a year and a few months before, on January 30, 1969, they all came together one last time and did one of the best live performances of all time. If you know this, you do know that they performed on the rooftop of their studio, Apple Corps. It was a very famous performance because no one has ever done something like this. They were only able to get 5 songs out before the police pulled the plugs on everything and shut it down. Funny story, Paul was actually arrested, and he talked himself out of it. The guy who arrested him was 19, but like, you know, it's Paul McCartney. Paul's been to jail a few times though, funny enough, but he was arrested and got his way out of it. But if I do have to rank this album, if I'm being honest with you, it's not a bad album. It does suck. I'm not gonna call it a super S because it's not a super S. Because everything I can put it at S. It's their last album. It wasn't a bad album. I mean, it's not long. You know, you can throw it at A, but it's definitely not B. I'm the only reason I'm putting it at S is the simple fact being that the songs are great. They did everything great. You know, it's just sad that, you know, you could tell listening to it like, yeah, this is it, their last album. But of course, that's my final decision on it. A good old S.